Hi there, we have Hari today, along with whom we will be discussing the state of global e-invoicing and how their company has implemented it to their customers.
Hi all, I'm Hari. I'm one of the co-founders of Compliance. So in the last few months, we have successfully implemented e-invoicing for several businesses in KSA, and we have a list of success stories to share with you all.
And we are generally going to discuss what is e-invoicing and what's the theory behind it and all. So let's actually start with the first question. What is e-invoicing, Hari?
Yeah, so I think you all might have heard of e-invoicing in pretty different definitions across the web. So I'm going to give a different explanation now. So e-invoicing is not just issuing invoices in an electronic format and sharing it between the suppliers and consumers. So e-invoicing is actually the sharing of invoices with the government authorities either in real time or as a asynchronous reporting model. So there are several other models on how you can implement e-invoicing or how governments implement e-invoicing in their geographies.
As you mentioned, Hari, that there are different types of models of implementation in e-invoicing. So it will be better if you give a brief on it.
Yeah. So majorly there are four types of e-invoicing models that's widely adopted. The first one is the network model. As we all know, there is the famous network called Peppol, which is widely adopted by all the European countries, either voluntarily or mandatorily. So it's been adopted to some extent. So the second model is the clearance model, where we have India and Saudi Arabia have adopted this clearance model. And then we have supplier direct model and buyer direct model. So in supplier direct and buyer direct, the supplier or the buyer, they implement e-invoicing standards within their ERPs or they set up some sort of e-invoicing environment. So as a buyer, I would expect invoices in an e-invoice format, in a particular standardized format, to be, for accounting purposes, to be recorded inside my ERP. In a similar way, as a supplier, if I implement a supplier direct e-invoicing model, I would be setting up some sort of e-invoicing environment either in my ERP or in my IT infrastructure, wherein I would be able to issue invoices in a e-invoicing format. So this format in a supplier direct model or a buyer direct model is not standardized across widely. So it's only standardized to the buyer or supplier level.
Okay, so it's just a best practice that the supplier and buyer follows. There is no government mandating it.
No.
Okay.
So these are the four models that is widely adopted.
Okay. One more question. Why is every government is making it compulsory or mandatory?
Yeah.
Even though it was a voluntary thing before.
Yes, I know we all see all the businesses are put into pain when e-invoicing is being implemented. So there is a huge list of benefits that the government is going to have through implementing e-invoicing. So governments tend to implement e-invoicing for the major reason is to reduce the tax evasion. As a business, say the government is pushing you to adopt e-invoicing. So government knows in real time what are the transactions that you do with any of your customers. So this helps government in capturing any tax or even finding out any tax evasion as a business you do when you do the filings at the end of the month or end of the quarter or end of the year. So this is the main reason.
Okay, this is the benefit to the government, right? What will the business get?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So on the one side, we see governments are pushing, obviously they have benefits. On the other side, in general, all the businesses, take this e-invoicing as a headache, or I would say as a pain.
Even they would have a lot of other things to look after, right?
So this is majorly why, because businesses have set up their IT infrastructure in a certain way that it is not ready to accept e-invoicing at first hand. That's the first reason businesses are hesitating to adopt it.
Okay.
So coming to the benefits of what businesses get. So you see, let's talk where the landscape where e-invoicing is not there. So say you have a ERP, you have some sort of standards. Say you're using, since we cannot mention the brand names here, say you're using X-ERP. So you are issuing invoice in a particular format which the X-ERP is supporting. Say there is your customer who is using another brand ERP called Y-ERP. So this invoice issued in X-ERP is not acceptable in Y-ERP in an electronic format. Okay. So
acceptable in the sense exactly what
yeah.
you mean?
So going to the technical parts. So as we break down an invoice, we see invoice has a headers like the dates, the timestamps, and the invoice numbers, and then we have line items, and then we have invoice summary. So the three major parts of the invoice.
The format.
The format of any invoice. If you go into the technical part, ERP A is structured in a particular format in the database, in its database, and ERP Y has a data structure in a different format than ERP X. This is a core mismatch where it's not getting accepted with each other.
Okay.
So coming to the benefits part, as a business, when you have a standard way of issuing and accepting invoices, it's going to save a lot of time when you do the VAT returns filing.
Okay.
So it's going to be easier for you to validate or to find any invoices this is legit or not, basically. So only you pick the invoices that are being issued properly and those which followed the regulations. Like, I did not get into the word regulation deeper. As we progress, we'll get into.
Okay. So this is becoming like a compulsory thing, right? So even I heard that it may even help the businesses reduce tax input, as you said.
Yeah.
But what happens when a country like US doesn't have any tax input? Why are they not getting into?
So US is a different case compared to all the other countries that we have. So we have European region, we have, and then in APAC we have India, and then in Middle East we have the GCC countries. So all these are individual countries having their own tax systems. So these individual countries come up together to either form a network model, adopt a network model like Peppol, or they on their own they adopt a clearance model like how Saudi Arabia or India did. So USA, it's a different case where we have 50 states having a non-federal VAT system or a non-federal tax system or a general VAT system across the country. So this is where the complexity starts. So 50 different states having 50 different tax systems or no tax systems. So this basically is a barricade for implementing a general e-invoicing standard across across the country from a government perspective. But what BPC has done is the Business Payments Coalition Forum, wherein all the businesses which want to implement voluntary e-invoicing, they have come together. They built a network like
it's a network by government or
no? It is a network by BPC.
Okay, BPC is a non-profit forum.
Yeah, it's a non-profit forum formed by it's specifically formed by a group of business professionals or group of businesses.
Okay.
So they all came together to build this network. So they have done a pilot. So this becomes much easier, for apart from the government, for businesses to make other businesses voluntarily adopt e-invoicing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So network thing is being played in USA. That is they are still in pilot.
Yeah, we have to wait and see how it is going to go.
And just a history question: where was e-invoicing first implemented?
Yeah, so e-invoicing was firstly implemented in Chile back in 2001. So Chile firstly adopted e-invoicing, and it for the businesses it gave it as a voluntary invoicing. It was not a mandatory invoicing for businesses. So and now Chile has seen a lot of success through e-invoicing after implementing it.
Okay, and I think as I went through Google and GPT-2, it said that Latin America is the continent where it was first implemented.
Yeah.
And when after that, the next continent that actually adopted it was European Union, right?
Yeah. So in European Union, it was adopted I would not say it is a mandatory adoption or mandatory by any of the governments in EU. It was a voluntary, voluntary.
What's the
standard.
network used there, or what is the setup there?
Yeah, it is called Peppol. So Peppol network was firstly built by the European countries. I mean, it was a non-profit organization. Initially, they developed a network where all the European countries can exchange invoices in a, or exchange tax documents in a standardized manner. So that was the purpose, and they built it in 2008 and rolled it out.
Okay.
So now Peppol has advanced to a greater extent that where governments are recognizing Peppol itself as a authorized network, or the governments are adopting Peppol and building their own e-invoicing system there.
So what are the countries that only the EU region, or is there any other country that is also recognized?
Yeah. There is a list of countries where even outside Europe which has adopted e-invoicing. There is Australia, there is New Zealand, and then we have a few other countries as well who have adopted. Japan is there, so who have adopted e-invoicing through Peppol.
Okay. So they have got they have been into the Peppol network.
Yeah.
So they are recommending their country's businesses to issue Peppol
compliant invoices.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, a step ahead of than recommending, they have asked businesses to mandatorily issue invoices in Peppol.
Okay. Is it does they have any segregation like B2B, B2C?
Yeah.
So
right. So so there are segments where countries, as we were speaking, back in 2008, businesses started adopting e-invoicing through Peppol voluntarily.
Okay.
So fast forward, as more businesses started adopting e-invoicing through Peppol, governments have started implementing B2G transactions, business to government transactions, as a mandatory e-invoicing through Peppol. So this is where government started testing the Peppol network, or they did their own pilot, the Peppol network.
Okay.
So there are three types of transactions that can be executed or transmitted through Peppol network. One is the B2G. So we have B2C, we have B2B, and there is edge case we also have G2C.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you said, right, that governments are pushing this to the businesses or making it mandatory for their own goodness. Business has their own thing, as you said, and even government. But has it given any success to their own economy?
Because definitely, because even before the EU countries or the Asian countries or the other countries adopted e-invoicing, North America adopted it very early. So it was firstly Brazil who saw a significant amount of tax revenue increase after implementing e-invoicing.
Okay.
So as we discussed, one of the benefits for government, so Brazil saw around $58 billion USD in increase in revenue through e-invoicing.
After e-invoicing.
After e-invoicing, and then we also have Chile who had 50% increase in tax evasion gap.
Okay,
After implementing e-invoicing. So there are a list of success stories through e-invoicing.
Okay.
That's the fundamental that's pushing governments to adopt e-invoicing.
Okay. So as you said, right, how is the government pushing it in the sense how are they able to track, and what are the rules that, okay, let's go deep into any one country's e-invoicing mandate.
Sure.
Let's go into 𝐤𝐴 as you have implemented it.
Yeah, so the Saudi Arabian e-invoicing, it's pretty well structured, I would say. So it was segmented well. So on a high level, Saudi Arabia e-invoicing was broken up into two different phases.
Okay.
The first phase one, was a lighter, I would say a very lightweight compliance on any business.
Technically.
Yeah, technically. So it would be easy for businesses to adopt. As a Saudi Arabian business, it would be easy for me to adopt e-invoicing phase one.
Okay.
So the Zakat authority asked businesses to generate a QR code.
Okay. So just to reduce the thing, what exactly did they ask the businesses? Because even before e-invoicing, they would have had ERP to maintain their own thing.
Yeah.
So what exactly did the government ask them to add in phase 1 and in phase 2?
Yeah. So in phase 1, say every business had ERPs and they were issuing invoices in a standard format already. They were issuing invoices, they were issuing credit notes and debit notes. So, especially with phase one, the government asked every invoice that every business that's issuing invoices, a QR code should be present on every invoice. This QR code is it will be a summary of that particular invoice when you scan it.
Okay.
So in phase two, progressing to phase two. So phase two is a pretty complex or little more and deeper into the actual e-invoicing that the government wanted to implement. So now with phase one, businesses are already ready to some extent to adopt phase two. So in phase two, the phase two is called as integration phase, where based on a business turnover, business particular turnover in the previous financial year, so they were grouped and put into different buckets.
Okay.
Or they call it different waves. Wave 1, wave 2, and it goes on till we have, for now we have announcements till wave 8.
So they have given time for businesses to get compliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this, made businesses according to their feasibility or capabilities, gave enough time to get them ready.
Okay. So technically, what was, as you said, it's an integration phase. What are all the kind of data was it required for the businesses, and how can they overcome that?
So as we saw, businesses already have ERPs which have standard data. With new regulation coming in, there is a data gap definitely in the existing ERPs. So that's where compliance helps in reducing the data gap that any business has in order to achieve Zatca compliance. So say there is a ERPX which is having standard format of data. That is only 80 to 85% sufficient for any business to go live in production for this phase two.
Okay.
So we help businesses bridge that gap, with that 15 to 20% gap, the additional data that's required. So as you asked, the main technical part is that every ERP needs to establish a connection with the Zatca's Fatura portal in order to share invoices in real time. So this is the main part with phase two.
As you have implemented it for few customers, right? What kind of major issues did you find, or some red flags that a business is already doing that they should not after phase two of integration?
Yes. So that's a huge list of red flags that we saw while implementing. So what we did is to avoid these red flags. Upfront, we created a framework called the gap analysis. So it's widely used. We tweaked it to some extent to for specialized for e-invoicing. So we have a gap analysis worksheet which our onboarding team will do exercise on a particular customer's ERP system to find the gap. So I would say I would categorize it as worst practices that the businesses were following before e-invoicing. So, for example, a business which is issuing an invoice, say I'm business A using ERPX, issuing invoice with invoice number 10. So you are a customer coming to me. So I gave you an invoice. So what happened is you return the goods. So I actually have to create a credit note and give it to you. With the good practice or best practices. So what I was actually doing is I deleted that particular invoice from the ERP. So this was surprisingly, this was not a minor problem. Most of the businesses that we dealt with, even at a large scale or mid scale, they were doing this. So after Zatca integration, we Zatca also was promoting this best practices through invoicing. So we help businesses. We help them how to identify these gaps and what needs to be done.
If suppose an invoice, it's as you said that if some product is being returned, they must give a credit note.
Yes.
So if they had some changes in the invoice, some mistakes, how would that be handled?
Yeah. So before e-invoicing, it's pretty easy. They can correct the invoice, reprint it, give it to the particular customer. So after phase two invoicing. Editing of any invoice after issuing it to the customer is
Okay.
restricted.
Is not
Possible.
okay.
So
It's not legal.
It's not legal also.
Okay.
So the business has to create a credit note, cancel create a credit note in order to cancel the old invoice.
Okay.
Create a new invoice with all the correct details and issue it to the customer.
Okay. So technically, you can not tamper the invoice that you created,
Yeah.
even though that item is being returned.
Yes.
So what you say is they have to completely create a new credit note of returning the whole items and then create a new invoice
Yes.
with a new number and
Right.
everything.
Right. So even now, if you as a business, if you're watching this video and you have more doubts on how to create credit notes or how to structure credit notes within your ERP, so we have in-house indirect taxation expert who can get in touch with you and help you solve this problem. So I hope we'll be giving the details in the description so you can reach out to us.
Is there any other red flag that you could come across other than the tampering and changing the data of an invoice?
Yeah, so this is one of the main deleting or editing of invoices after issuing them. The second one is this is going to impact the invoice sequence,
Okay.
which is again a very, very critical factor for any business to achieve 100% compliance. So if you're deleting any invoice in between, say there is invoice number 8, next should be 9, and then the next one should be 10, and it should go on in an incremental format,
Okay.
numerically incrementing format. So what happens is when business delete invoice number 9, there is 8, and then the next invoice is 10. The 9 is not there.
Okay.
So with the new phase 2 invoice integration, every invoice is going to be referenced or tagged to the previous and the next invoice.
Okay.
Say 9 will be tagged to the invoice 8
Okay.
and invoice 10.
Okay. How is it being achieved? Tag in the sense
Yeah.
technically something.
Yeah, I would elaborate.
Yeah.
So technically, invoice 9 hash value. If you're not aware of hash,
Okay. We will give it in the description. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Yeah.
So invoice hash is a a random value that cannot be reversed to find the
Okay.
original invoice
Okay.
invoice data.
Okay.
So when you do hash of an invoice, you get a random value. So this hash of the previous invoice and hash of the next invoice is going to be looped with each other like to form a chain.
Okay.
This is how the blockchain is also working.
Okay. Yeah.
So every invoice, to put it all in a simple terms, the e-invoicing is structured like a blockchain. Every invoice is tagged to the
Okay.
previous invoice using
Is
a
it
hash.
the case in every implementation by other governments, or it's only specific to KSA?
There are exemptions. It's KSA who has done this strict
Okay.
invoicing. I would say the invoice sequencing in such a way that it's forming a blockchain.
Oh,
We have to wait and see how it's structured in
other countries.
other countries, and also I'll explain the next video.
In the next video, okay.
How it's done in Peppol.
Peppol.
network.
Okay. Peppol and I did come across Chorus Pro.
Yeah,
something, so-
that's an interesting thing.
Okay.
We'll discuss it in detail as we
Okay.
progress.
Yeah, let's do that in another video. We did go deeper into Saudi's implementation, right? So that is what's the type of model?
Yeah, this is a clearance model.
Okay.
Clearance come reporting model. So
Okay.
for B2B business to business invoices, it is a real-time clearance model.
Okay.
So Saudi Arabian government has opened a platform called Fatura portal
Okay.
through its Zakat tax authority, where businesses can connect to this portal and in real time they can share invoices.
Okay. So they have created something from scratch, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And which other country has already implemented something similar to this clearance
There's
model?
India has also implemented invoicing in a similar model called clearance. India has also implemented e-invoicing 2 to 3 years back. Now
Okay.
it's almost progressed to to the smaller scale businesses.
Okay. What is the exact difference in the implementation?
Yeah. So there are minor changes with KSA. They have categorized the functionalities, invoicing functionalities based on the transactions.
Okay.
So in India, it's not mandatory for the B2C transactions.
Okay.
It's only mandatory for the B2B transactions.
Okay.
And the model is pretty different. Here it is in real time. To get in deeper, the QR code data inside the Indian invoicing and the Saudi invoicing is different to some extent.
Okay. But majorly, if you see, all other countries are getting into a network.
Yeah.
Okay.
So majority is adopting a network model.
Okay.
In
Like-
EU, 32 countries have adopted.
They're into Peppol now.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as is mentioned, I did come across a blog reading that something called Vida that
Yeah.
European Union has
Yes.
introduced. So, if you
Mm.
could give some light on it, it will be better.
Yeah, so Vida is, as we see in EU, the tax model or the, widely it is VAT, but though it is VAT, the countries within Europe have implemented VAT in a different manner.
Okay, just like US.
Yes, it's again it's not a standard VAT model across the Europe.
Okay.
So Vida is VAT in the digital age, where it's going to help businesses calculate or transform their VAT model or the tax adoption model in a different way. So that's we can take it in a separate video to a much greater extent and discuss it in detail.
We have actually gone a lot into what's the type of e-invoicing today, like clearance, network model, and what was the other two?
The supplier direct and the buyer direct.
Supplier direct model. But these are not standardized.
Yeah, these are not standardized and also widely adopted.
One more last question. Which was the first country to implement in European Union?
It was Italy who
Okay.
implemented invoicing back then. I don't remember the exact date. It was 2014 or 13, somewhere like that. So they have implemented invoicing, as a mandatory invoicing
Okay.
in Europe. So if you are a business in 𝐾𝐶 looking to implement invoicing within your existing IT infrastructure, either ERP or any other accounting software, you can reach out to us. So we are helping businesses to achieve this Zatca e-invoicing in a very simplified manner. I hope we'll give the details in the description. You can reach out to us and book a free demo at your convenience.
Hope this video was helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if this was really helpful to you, please share it in a circle to your other business colleagues. And stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.